When I think of peace or of tranquility, the first thought that pops into my mind is water. Something about a place where blue meets gray, meets green, meets white brings such calm to me. I have always loved sitting beside the water, be it ocean, lake, pond, or roadside creek, listening to the gurgling water and watching it change colors and temperament. I feel a sort of kinship toward the ocean in particular. We are somewhat similar beings, temperamental but predictable. I know that the ocean is always going to be there for me to sit near, swim in, and shout at if need be. It's a place of calmness and center for me, a place where I can let my guard down and be my real self. And then I met this little guy. He came running up to me one day absolutely covered in mud and told me that he was the mud man. From that day on, rain or shine, he was my mud man. We concocted characters and stories about him, and his friends had to get in on the show. Every time I took my camera out, I would be bombarded by kids running at me from all directions, screaming for me to take their photo. I would oblige, and then they would be hanging off of me, jumping on my head, my arms, and any spare body part they could latch onto, desperate to see themselves on the tiny digital screen. It was pure and total chaos, a little painful and a little thrilling. The day I met Xena, I fell head over heels for her. She was bright and energetic to an extreme. She laughed so readily and loudly at anything that amused her in the slightest. I was starving for love and affection, and she gave it to me. Rarely did we sit by each other without touching, and whenever we walked arm in arm. All the kids I got to know were the most precious people I could have ever met. They were a little too loud and a little unsure of their reading skills. Their school uniforms were shabby and their backpacks falling apart at the seams. They had attitude for days. They were perfect. There was such joy in our dingy classroom, such love and warmth. The social intrigue of sixth grade drama kept us all enthralled with each other. Even on the coldest rainy days, a hug from any of the kids could warm me up faster than a bonfire on a summer night. The class was incredibly loud, and there were way too many people in one small space. We were piled on top of each other, and in that chaos, I found a new kind of peace, a different sort of tranquility I had never felt before. Just being there, being with Xena and all the other kids made me feel just plain good. Never before had I felt so smart or needed. Suddenly, I was a math master and a reading genius. Little girls were telling me that they wanted to be like me when they grew up. I couldn't fathom why anyone would want to be like me. As time went by, though, I started to feel more and more confident in myself and in my abilities as a student and a teacher. You could say I learned to be comfortable in my own skin. It took a month in a grimy classroom in a poor township in South Africa for me to find myself. I always say how hokey that sounds, but it's the truth. I found myself in a classroom with a dozen young children staring raptly at me while I explained the difference between nouns, verbs, and adjectives. In that classroom, I found love. I found hope. I found compassion. I traveled 10,000 miles, and then I was really myself.